What is the worst physical pain you have ever experienced? Second worst pain of my life. 3 broken ribs in a car accident. Worst pain of my life. Getting hiccups 3 days later. Kidney stones. It started as an ache in my back and within 15 minutes I was curled in a ball on the floor at work. 10 minutes after that I was bellowing at the top of my lungs in the ER. If I never feel a pain like that again, I will be a very happy man. Cluster headaches. First time I had one, my mom took me to the emergency room because I kept sobbing about how I wanted to stab myself in the face and die to make it stop hurting. Duck those things. When I was 7, I had surgery on both of my legs. I have cerebral palsy, and this surgery was meant to help me stand up straight. I wanted to walk, but this was just to help me stand up. I was like, WTF is the point then? I get to stand? Big deal. They told me I would never walk. After surgery was by far the worst pain I've ever felt. Long story short, we found out that day that morphine does not work on me. When I was wheeled into my room, I said to my mom, "Mom, I think they cut my legs off." I knew they were there. I could see them and I wasn't doped up or anything. It just hurt so much. Later that night, while I was crying in pain and the nurses and such were feeding me different meds, I asked mom if I was going to die. Oh yeah. And about that not walking stuff, I proved them wrong. I was drunk and used Dave's insanity sauce on my tacos like it was regular old mild sauce. The next 36 hours of pooping molten lava every hour or so was just unbelievable. I'm not religious but I ducking prayed while I was on the toilet. Then I'd climb in the shower and spread my butt cheeks under the water to try and wash away the Satan. Almost died in a house fire once. It wasn't so much the skin melting. I was too in shock to feel that once I was out of the house. It was later in the hospital when the nurses had to scrape the skin off my back in a bathtub. I felt that. Had to have a plantar wart removed from my foot. It was about the size of a quarter. At the time, the preferred method was to freeze it off. Not with ice cubes, either. We're talking something along the lines of liquid nitrogen. Super cold it. Applied for a few seconds to the bottom of my foot. I knew I was in for summit when I noticed the handprints in the arms of the chair. A podiatrist's chair is like the one at your dentist, but instead of lifting your mouth up, it lifts your feet up to the level where the doctor can work on them. It was upholstered in green vinyl. This was the early 80s, and the ends of the arms looked like some poor bastard had died gripping the chair. I soon learned why. Holy duck did that hurt. I can't accurately describe it other than to say that at a certain point, cold begins to burn. The worst part is that I needed several treatments before the cluster of warts finally died off. I snapped my collarbone in half. Hard enough that people heard 50 feet away. Yeah, it hurt when it happened but there was adrenaline etc. After an ER visit and drugs everything was good. Came home and popped a movie in. Then I woke up the next morning at like 10 AM. Felt like something was wrong but I couldn't figure out what, so I jerked up and went to reach across my body with the wrong arm. I heard a scraping noise and involuntary tears came out of eyes and then I passed out. Probably nothing compared to most of the stories on here but I still think about it and sweat from time to time. Abscess on my tonsils. Doctor told me to take painkillers. Couldn't even swallow water. When I tried my body would say no way and send the water out of my nose. My wife found me sitting in the kitchen floor crying. Wouldn't wish it on anybody. Had both my big toenails removed after repeated ingrown nails in my teens. First they jam what is essentially a surgical screwdriver underneath the nail and scrape around like it's a goddamned oyster knife. They take surgical pliers and rip the ducker off. Then they sulfuric acid and burn the flesh underneath to damage the parts of your body that grows nails. It didn't really work in the sense that I still grow these really ducked up super thick nails, but it did work in the sense that they're no longer capable of becoming ingrown. The secret to the pain though, is that they were super infected when they were removed, and the only numbing applied was Novocaine, when apparently is nullified by infection. So I felt all of it. Ultimately they gave me 3 Lortab, and a big shot of Demerol. I slept for 15 or so hours, and then woke up to life not being quite so painful. Okay, so I've taken some hard falls during dirt biking and skiing accidents. But some of the most excruciating pain was when I put toothpaste on my balls. Now I know that sounds incredibly random, but it makes sense in context. I was watching an episode of Top Gear, and Jeremy Clarkson said something about putting toothpaste on your balls. Now I had never heard of this, so I decided that when the episode was over, I would go do science. I went up to the bathroom and lathered my balls in toothpaste. Now if you don't know, the menthol in toothpaste causes this coldish burning feeling that won't go away. I don't know if the toothpaste was extra mentholy or if I had put on too much, but I was in so much pain. It wouldn't go away. I tried to wash it off but it was too late. I sat in the shower, in the fetal position, with the shower pouring warm water on me. Never again will I listen to Jeremy Clarkson on what to put on my testes. Appendicitis. My it exploded and I not really kinda almost died. My friends have since asked me how to tell if you have appendicitis. Oh, my sweet prince. There will be no doubt in your mind you have appendicitis when you feel like there's a butcher's knife slicing up and down your right side. I stuck my hand in the tines of a snowblower to clear out some ice. It was in neutral without the blades engaged. Turns out that there was some residual torque left once I got the ice clear, and my jacket got caught on the blades. That pulled my hand into the chute which took off the top of my index finger and broke all my other fingers in a very painful manner. They were able to reattach my index finger, which was good, but then I woke up 2 days after with a severe red line running from my hand to my chest. The finger flesh had rotted and I had blood poisoning and spent a week in the hospital, and of course, lost the fingertip, just the tip. That wasn't the worst part. Still, the most painful part was when they had to remove the pins from all my fingers. The pins had shifted and they actually had to sanitize a large wrench from the maintenance team to pull them out. Took 2 DRS and a few hours of immense pain, but I'm all good now. When I was 12 I was playing hockey and went feet first into the boards. Broke 3 bones in my ankle, needed a metal plate and screws in my ankle. To make it worse, when I got home from the hospital my hamster died. Worst day of my life, so far. It's a tie between falling off a 2-story building and appendicitis. I was kicked in a way that it hit both my ballsack and my tailbone at the same time. I was going to write about the time I tore a ligament in my finger at football practice, but after reading some of these comments I will just keep to myself. I punctured my hand with an oyster knife. They had to clean it since there was shell in the wound. They used a pressure syringe to wash it out. However, they didn't know I had cut the nerve in my hand. The feeling of water shooting on my freshly severed nerve almost made me puke, pass out and jump off the bed all at the same time. Either being pulled from the wreckage of my car and having all of the pain from my ankles being shattered, my leg snapped, my knee broke, my hip fractured in 3 places and dislocated, 2 of my vertebrae fractured, 4 of my ribs fractured, and my spleen ruptured hitting all at once, or having my leg put in traction to keep my hip from working its way back into the socket. Somebody put the rod through my leg cockeyed and every movement shifted it so a specialist would come in and wrench the bar where it needed to be. Does a mental breakdown count? Yes, it's mental, but the way it made my body feel was probably the worst. They ran a camera up Mr. Happy into my bladder and kidney to check out if everything was okay. I was assured that the camera was no bigger around than a Sharpie 00 and they asked if I wanted to be put under for it. Obviously yes. After awakening, I was starting to pass a kidney clot. Imagine peeing a chicken liver, and it hurt very badly. I was given Vicodin, which turns out I'm allergic to. Please lie down sir. While passing a huge clot and vomiting all over almost made me violent. I would have to say that was about as much pain as I've ever been in. Got IBS, which has a wonderful variety of ways it will decide to reject food, but the worst ones are the clog ups. Whatever's inside just stops moving and my whole body slows to a crawl. All I can do is fall to the shower floor in agony, let the hot water flow over me and pray that my body will hit one of the eject buttons. One night out on the town I got hooked in the jaw when my mouth was open mid-sentence. I was so maggot that I didn't really think much of it until I woke up. Holy ducking hell, that pain is something I will never forget. I walk out and sat on the couch while my dad was looking at the news on his PC and asked him to take me to hospital. Few hours later I get told I had a tiny hairline fracture on my jawbone. Most painful thing that I've ever had to experience, and it was minor, as far as broken jawbones go. Boned on driver's side. Broken jaw in 2 places. Broken all ribs on left side. Knocked out bottom front tooth. Punctured lung. Spleen ruptured internal organs duct. Broken hip socket. Passed out from the pain and my chest cavity filling up with blood, lung deflated. Woke up from the paddles to start my heart again. Had to cut my car open to get me out. 1 year rehab to walk again. 6 surgery on my face. Tons of rehab and lifelong issues with my sacroiliac joint now. Broken jaw. 1 stroke 10 would not do again. Sucked so many donkey balls. Also having a broken jaw was it too. Kidney stone passage. It was tiny, but shaped like a shuriken. That's a pain I won't soon forget. Usually, his fists pounding the it out of the bathroom wall. Viral meningitis plus meningitis headache plus several spinal taps because Bronx hospitals are very good. It was a lovely 3rd week of college. Inguinal hernia. That's a hernia in your crotch. Plus migraine plus puking. Minus 1000 stroke 10 do not recommend. I had stitches on my nail bed after an injury and a few weeks later the skin started to heal. Once it was time to take the stitches out, the doctor just ripped off the skin that was in the way and ripped out those stitches. Recovering from a bone graft 10 years ago comes to mind. The first time I had pancreatitis. I got dehydrated and my hands contorted into a claw-like thing that I couldn't move no matter how hard I tried. It felt like my wrists were going to break in half. One time when I was a kid I had a splitting headache that hurt so bad I was crying and screaming until I lost consciousness. Never had it looked into and that's the only episode I've had to date. Appendicitis in early 2016. Felt like I was being stabbed. One of the trig nurses at the ER asked out of 10 what the pain would rate as. If I had a clear head I should have said 17. We're halfway through labor with baby number 1. She got about halfway dilated and there's all the Brixton Hicks in the world but no real action. Been going a good 6 hours or so. So the nurses suggest we head into the shower and get some hot water on the situation. So Wiffy's completely nude and I'm in my boardies and we've got 2 of those flexible shower heads on hoses trained on her lower back and tummy for about 20 minutes. We decide to head back into the birthing suite so I help her dry off and she wanders back in. As she's getting back up on the gurney she gets a contraction and is doing the straining Marge Simpson voice thing while potentially falling off the bed. I rush back in to make sure she's okay, well, as much as possible, and absolutely cane the frame coaster of the gurney with my bare foot. My pinky taking most of the hit. I've fallen off motorbikes, ripped fingernails off on fences and had a little brother. So I've been kicked in the area plenty. This hurt way more. Where I'm more. But I couldn't say anything. Because she's laying there making animal noises. TLDR. I stubbed my toe. But it's in the telling. I had trigeminal neuralgia for the entire year of 2015 as well as massive pain from a wisdom tooth. I think the neuralgia set off the tooth but I had no idea about the tooth as I'd never had neuralgia before. The pain was ducking horrendous. I called it suicidal pain simply because the whole year I questioned why the duck I was still living in the pain. Last year 2016 was the first time I'd had no pain. But the insane amount of hardcore pain meds I had been trying and using for a whole year totally ducked my system and I'm only just starting to feel decent again. Corneal abrasion. That was rough for a few days. I once tried to do a bar spin on my bike when I was a kid. The handlebars were sharp from dropping the bike on the pavement. I caught the end of the bar in my belly as I failed the bar spin. The bike was against the ground and the bar stabbed me in the belly. It hurt like Satan. Still have a circle scar on my belly. Skinned my left arm, wrist to elbow falling off a longboard. Initial pain was nothing compared to water touching the wound in the shower the next day. Trip over my boyfriend foot, now husband, and fell down a flight of stairs. I broke both of bones on my right and left forearm. They set 4 bones in place on the spot. The next month was a living hell for me. Gallstones. I thought I was dying on the way to the ER and said my goodbyes to my husband. 2 times. Once, when I accidentally ripped my big toenail off by yanking on a pair of jeans with a hole in the knee. The toenail caught the edge of the hole and just ripped right off. I'm a grown man, but I cried and puked. That toenail never did grow back right. I also had the memorable experience of having dry socket in both of the sockets from my wisdom teeth in my lower jaw. It's not a sharp, sudden pain, but a never-ending agonizing, throbbing pain that made me seriously consider suicide for the first, and hopefully last, time in my life. At least it will stop hurting. Then, I discovered the miracle of clove oil. My oral surgeon was unaware that you can buy clove oil at the drugstore. He was amazed when I told him that I didn't need to actually make another visit to his office to get a clove oil treatment. The dry socket was still horrible, but at least I knew that I could temporarily numb the pain. This thread is making me very self-aware of all of my body parts. It's resulting in a very uncomfortable feeling. I can't describe it, but I'm sure you know what I mean.